Okay. So we are done with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript basics.
Okay.
Now, till now, what you're doing is you're creating a JSON file to store your data and getting the data from that JSON file as of now, right?
Yeah.
Next step, what we are going to do is we are going to learn SQL Server database.
Okay.
So that we can store our data in our database tables that we are actually going to implement in our projects and all, and then we can fetch the data from those SQL tables. So today's session is all about SQL and its basic queries, so that you get familiar with it.
So we don't get used of JSON file anymore. If we use the
Database. Yeah.
SQL.
Exactly. So we're going to cover the following topics. That is basically what is SQL, what is RDBMS, you'll come to know about it later, and some SQL constraints, commands, and the basic SQL syntax we are going to learn today. So basically SQL is the structured query language that we use to manipulate or access data from a database. That's a basic query language for any database. You can use it with SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle, anywhere. The language used is SQL. So we basically use the Microsoft version of SQL Server database, but MySQL is also good because it's an open source database. You can use it anytime. But for professional and enterprise use, we prefer Microsoft's SQL Server database. So that's what we're going to use it here for us. Yeah. So basically, to build an application and to connect to the database, what we need is an RDBMS database like SQL Server or MySQL. We are going to use the Microsoft SQL Server. The next thing is a server-side scripting language that we're going to learn later for web services thing, so that you can connect your database with your HTML code. That will be your intermediate language. And then you need the SQL queries and HTML, CSS that we've already learned basics. So first of all, what is RDBMS? RDBMS is a relational database management system where you create your data in a particular set of tables where you have rows and column structure. Where this ID, name, and age, these are the columns. And when you talk about the rows, these are the value that contains 1, Bella, 25. This is one particular row of the data. This is the second row we have in our data. So when we talk about relational database, we talk about columns and rows. Okay. It's about the table structure. Do you have any questions?
RDBMS is only for a table structure.
Yeah, RDBMS means relational database system. That means you are connecting a set of tables, and a table has rows and columns.
Okay. So it's only about tables.
Yeah. So when you create basic SQL tables and anything in SQL Server, you need to define some constraints and rules that what data you want to insert in that table and what type of values you want in the rows. That a certain type of value is allowed and a particular type of value is not allowed to be entered in the database. So we call them SQL constraints. So basically constraints are the rules that you enforce on data columns on your tables. Like you're creating a, say supposing you're creating a database for your users. You'll create a users table. You'll give the field names as ID, name, and age, like we have in this example. ID, name, and age for your users table. Then you want certain rules to be implied on your table. Like you want ID should not be null. The table should not contain null values in your ID column. A user must have an ID, so you'll implant not null constraint on your ID column. You'll apply this constraint that if this column should not have null values. So not null constraint will be applied there. Second is default value. Let's suppose you have field called age, and you want if the user doesn't enter any value there, you want the default value should be there as 10. So you will set the default as 10. It will take the value as 10 if you don't provide the value to that particular column. If you
give only default, it automatically
populates the value. Yeah. That's the default value. If you are not overriding it, you can always give your own values here, but the default value will be taken as 10. Okay. Then comes the unique constraint. For example, you want your one column to have unique value, that two rows should not have same values for that particular column. You can use it for ID column. The ID should not be duplicate, right?
Yeah.
Two users should not have the same ID. So you can apply unique constraint there. Then we have primary key. That's the most important constraint. You don't have to apply the unique constraint, not null constraint, anything. If you are applying the primary key constraint, that's the unique value that should not be null for a table. Primary key is the key that should not have null values and it's unique for in a table.
Okay.
Have unique values in a table. So these are the basic constraints for SQL. If you have any questions with that, you can ask me.
So, what is the primary key?
A primary key is the key in a table that will not have null values at all, and it will be unique for, the values will be unique. The column values will be unique for every record in that table.
Like we have the ID column in the
Yeah.
transition.
The ID column, this should not have null values, and this should be unique for every user, right? The ID should be unique. So you will apply the primary key constraint on this ID column.
So instead of putting not null and
Mhm.
we can put only primary key.
And the primary key
Should have only.
and one more thing, the primary there will be only one primary key per table. There cannot be multiple primary keys. Primary key is only
column
one.
is going to be the primary key. So instead of not null and unique, we use the primary that is only used for
one. Yeah. So it's clear till now. Okay. So let's move forward. Next is basic SQL commands. The basic things that we use with a database is creating a database or table, reading the data from the database tables, and then updating the data there back to the table. And if you want to delete any record, we can do that, right? So this is the basic CRUD operation that we perform on any SQL table: create, read, update, and delete. We call it basic CRUD operations. Okay. So there are two sets of operations that we can perform. That's called data definition language. That includes the creating the table, altering the table. That means if you have already created the table, you want to update the data type of a particular column. For example, you have used varchar for your name and you want to update it to nvarchar. So you use the alter table command for that. And drop table, of course, to delete the table. This is the basic, you're defining the structure of the table and applying the constraints on the table. Next is data manipulation language that you can, with which you can manipulate the data inside the table. For example, you can select the data from the table, you can insert values to your table. In values, by values I mean you can insert the row values, right? Then you can update the data inside the table, and then you can delete rows from the table. The drop table command was for completely deleting the table. This delete command is deleting the rows from a table.
Okay. This is inside the table and that is the whole table.
Yeah. Got it? Any questions?
So what is altering is changing the values inside the table.
Changing the values of columns. If you want to update anything about the column, the data type,
The whole column.
no, just the data type. What type you want to be? Suppose say this, we have this table.
Yeah.
You apply when you were creating the table, you said name should be varchar type. There is a database type called varchar in SQL. You define the varchar type for the name table. Later, you wanted to increase the varchar value. Say supposing you applied the limit to 100 and now you want it to be 200. The length can be 200, right? So you will use the alter table command, alter table, and update the data type of this particular column. You're not changing any row values here. You're just updating the data type of this particular column. There you will use this alter table command. And if you want to use, if say supposing you entered Bella here, you want to update the Bella to some other name here, then you will use the update command because you are updating the rows there. Okay. So next, we are going to learn some basic syntax that SQL commands use so that you get familiar with the basic SQL queries. We are actually going to implement them here. You can directly create the database by just going to the SQL server, right click on the database and say create new database. but we are going to learn everything with the commands, SQL commands here. Okay. So the first command we are going to use is create database and the database name. It will create a basic database. Whatever name you want to give to your database, you can give it here. After that, we will create a table inside that database. What's the syntax for the table? Create table, table name, whatever name you want to give to your table, and then column name, data type name, column name, data type name. For example, ID and data type is integer. You want to give it to integer. So column ID and data type will be int. Column 2 name, data type will be that or string. Okay. So similarly, you can specify n number of columns and data types here, whatever you want to define inside your table. And then lastly, you have to define the primary key of this table. There should be there has to be one primary key per table that will have unique value and will not have null values.
So guys, taking primary key for the column.
Primary key is the keyword, and column you can have the column 1. For example, ID, if you want to be the primary key ID, then you can give primary key, and in quotes you can give ID here. So we take ID as the primary key of this table. Next thing what we are talking about is alter table. Same thing, if you want to update data type of any particular column, you want to update anything about the column, you can use alter table command. Alter table, table name, and then you can use add, drop, or modify any column from the database, and you can update the data type as well. This is the basic syntax of alter table command. Then you can similarly insert values, insert into, and the table name. You want to insert rows in a table, you can give insert into table name, what columns do you want to insert the values, and what are the values. Same thing, if you want to update any value, any particular value in a row, you can give update table name, this table name you want to update, and set column 1 to value this. And you can always put a where condition, it's optional, like where the ID is this, update name. You want to set name equals to this, where ID equals to 1. You can put where condition. This is the basic structure for delete from table. Delete from table where condition. Like you can give delete from your table name, and then where condition you can put ID equals to 1. So it will delete the complete row from the table. And drop table will drop the complete table. Your table will get deleted from the database. Okay. And then you can similarly, you created the database here, and you can drop the database. You can delete the database. Yeah. So this is the basic structure of SQL queries that we are going to actually see how it works. So let's go to, this is our SQL Server Management Studio. That is Microsoft SQL Server that we are actually using. And we are going to implement some commands here that we have just learned. So the first one was create database, right? So what we are going to do is, we are going to create a database called sales in our database. I'm going to execute this command. It says command successfully executed here. And let's see if the database got created or not. Refresh. And my sales database is here. I created the database with name sales, and the database is here. I did it with the command. You can just go directly here, right click and say new database, and give the database name. It will similar way, it will get created here. Now, the basic structure of a database is created here. Now what we want is, we want to create some tables for our database, right? So the next command comes is create table. I want to create a table inside my sales database. DBO is the basic database owner of this database, intermediate object, and then I want to create a table called customers in my sales database. This is my table name. Okay, so I'm using this name. Yeah.
Create table, first sales, and then the database.
Yeah.
And then table name.
Exactly. So I'm going to create a table inside my sales database called customers. That will have the following fields. I'm using ID, that will take the integer data type. Name, that will take the n varchar, and the length will be 255. The allowed length is 255 for this column. Similarly, address, city, state, country, zip code. These are the columns I want in my customers table. And these are the database that I have specified, data type that I have specified with each column. Next, what I want is this ID, the first field, ID. to be used as the primary key of this table. So I'll specify primary key ID.
If you want name to be a primary key, you can give instead of ID, you can
Give the name, yeah. But generally we use the ID field for the primary key name. So I'm going to execute this command. It says command successfully executed here. And then let me refresh my database. You can see the customers table here. And if you expand this, you will see all the columns. See, I created ID, int, name, in bracket 255, address, city, state, country, and zip code. All the fields that are specified in my command that are there. Okay. So if you right click here and say select top 1000 rows, it will show up all the columns. There is no value right now. We have not inserted any values here, right? So next what we are going to do is
you would first right click on it.
On this customer table,
Okay.
I'll just right click and say select top 1000 rows, or I can say edit top 200 rows
Okay.
to
So that
see
is
the
how it is
values.
selected.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are done with creating database and creating the table. Okay. So next, suppose what I want to do is I want to alter my one of my columns in my database in this table. So say suppose I forgot to add the phone number field in my customers table. So what I will do is alter table name. I want to alter this table and I want to add phone number as a new field with this data type. So I'll execute this command. Command executed successfully. Now I'll refresh this and the phone number field is here. You can see I'll add it here. Okay. So alter table command, you can modify the columns in the table. Next, what I want is I want to insert some values. I want some rows to be there in my database. Okay. So I use the insert command. I want to insert the values. What I'm doing is insert into, that's the basic syntax, extra syntax. Yeah. Yeah. So in my sales table, I'm using customers table. I want to insert some values here. I want the values to be inserted in these particular columns: ID, name, address, city, state, country, zip code, and phone. And what values I want to insert is one in ID. This is the name, Alfred. This is the address, 250 Washington Avenue. The next city is South Plainfield, state New Jersey, country USA, zip code is 07080, and then the phone number. The sequence should match. If you're specifying the ID first, the ID should come first in the value. They should be in same sequence. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to execute this command. Okay. One row affected. It says one row affected. Now let's right click and select top 1000 rows. If I click, I can see the value inserted here. The row got created here. Okay. Similarly, I can create more values. I've created this 5 set of values. I can execute this command. Same thing. The 4 more rows. I'll go back and execute. I've created the 5 rows in a table here. Okay.
Now, if I try to execute this command again, same
command
what do you
again.
think should happen?
Yeah. Will it allow me to add this or no?
Only that one?
Yeah.
In the all the 4.
I've inserted these 5 values already, right?
Okay.
So what will happen if I try to execute this command again? I specified ID as the primary key, right?
Yeah.
So it should not have the duplicate values, right? It should be unique. So it should give me an error. If I try to insert the one value in ID field again, then it should give me some error, right? So let's try. What happens is, see, primary key constraint. It says violating the primary key constraint, and you cannot have duplicate values in ID field. Okay. So till now I have created the database. I created one table inside my database. altered the column of that particular table, and inserted some values in that table. Next is I want to update a particular value. What will I do is see, I want this field. The first name I gave here is Alfred, just Alfred I use as a name. I want the whole name to be updated in my database as Alfred Anders. What will I do is update, select the database and the table, customers from this database, set name as Alfred Anders, where ID was 1. Where the ID is 1, you can update the name here, right?
So instead of giving ID, we can just give the where city is near this.
No,
Okay.
city, you can have multiple values with this, right?
ID is fine.
Yeah, you want to update just this row, so you will select the name constraint here. So it will update this row. One row affected. Now I'll go back again, check my table, and it says Alfred Anders. The name got updated. Okay, you can update the values using update command. So let's move forward. Now I've inserted the values. I have a complete database with a table that has some values in it, right? So what I want is next, I want to fetch some values in a particular manner, that I have a particular set of values that I want to display in my HTML or anywhere, right? I can get the values in many different ways. The first basic step is what we use. The command is select star. That will give you all the columns. That will select all the columns from a table, and the table name I'm specifying here same way. So what it will do is it will select all the values from that particular table. Select star from customers. It was the same thing that I was doing by right click here and doing the select top 1000 first, right? So it will do the same thing by selecting all the values. Now next what I want to do is I want to select only those values where the city is South Plainfield. Okay, so I've given this select star from customers where city is South Plainfield. I'll execute this. I should get only this row, right? From the result set, it will give me only this particular row. Similar, I can execute this. Manisha, hello, Manisha, just give me a minute. Hello, Manisha, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Penny.
Yeah, just give me a minute. Remember? The table, right? Okay. Okay. So the next is what I want to do is I want to select distinct values of city from this table. I want the city name should come only once. Even if that was the Piscataway here should come only once. So I want the distinct values of the city from this particular table. So I'll say select distinct city from this table. So what will happen is it will select the distinct city name. Piscataway comes only once. So I'll get the distinct values of one particular column and I'm specifying.
So it doesn't give whole table. It only gives us
because I've selected only city. Even if I'll give here, I want to set some particular values, say ID and name. It will give me just these two column values, ID and name. Select star will give me all the columns. Okay. So you got it till distinct period, right? The next what we have is the order by clause. We can sort the table. I want the city to be sorted by in ascending order. Right? I want the values to be sorted by city column. So I'll just select star from customers and order by city. Okay. So I'll select this, execute this. I'll get the values sorted by city column. And if I want the values to be sorted in reverse order, I'll give the keyword here DC, descending order. Okay. Ascending is the default, but you can also give explicitly ASC. Okay. So it will reverse the sorting. I'll get the south plain field on top and Highland Park in the bottom. Okay. It will sort the column in reverse order. Okay. So next is I want a count that how many rows do I have in this particular table. I want to count the total number of records that I have in one table. What I will do is select count is the SQL keyword. I'll give count star, that means count the number of rows in this particular table. Okay. So what it will give me is 5. I have 5 rows in this table. It will give me the output of counting the rows. Okay. Next is the group by clause. That's very important. What I want is I want to count for one particular city how many records do I have in the table. For example, it will give South Plainfield. I have just one record, right? For Piscataway, I have 2 records. Similarly, for North Brunswick and Highland Park, I have one record each. Okay. So what I'm doing here is select city and count count the rows that the city has, and from this table and group by, I am applying the group by clause on city column. It will group the records by city and give me the count of those particular records. What should be the output here is I've selected the city name and the count. See, Highland Park has the 1 record, North Brunswick has 1, then Piscataway has 2 records, and South Plainfield has 1 record. So there are many different ways that we can fetch the data from a database using select statements with the different keywords and different clauses. Okay. So do you have any questions in here? Okay with all the commands? Okay. So this was all about manipulating the data in a database. Now what you want to do is you have this table here and the values here. Now you want to delete a particular row from the table. You will say delete from customers where ID equals to 1. You want to delete this particular row from this database. So it will delete where ID is 1. It will delete the complete row. Let's execute it. 1 row affected. Now you can go back to your table. Check again. ID 1 got deleted. The complete row got deleted with this one. Okay. So we are clear with selecting, updating, and using the rows from the database and everything, all the commands we learned till here. Now this command, what if we do drop table?
So we completely remove the delete the table.
Yeah, it will delete the table, the whole table from this database. So what I'm going to do is drop table customers from the sales database. Okay. So I'm executing this command. Command successfully executed. Now I'll refresh this, and there is no customers table here. It got deleted from the database. Now next what I want to do is I want to delete the database from my database completely. What will I do is drop database sales from my database. Command successfully executed. The sales database should go away from here. Okay. So you're good with all the commands here? Do you have any questions for any of the commands? You can. You good? Okay. So this was the basic SQL syntax and queries that you're going to use moving forward with the database. And you can read the references from the W3 schools and tutorials point for the SQL basics. Okay. Okay, so this was all about SQL today. Manisha, do you have any questions?
No, Sharma, I just, I like it the way you guys doing it right now.
Thanks, Manisha.
So let's drop it off from this and then I will give you a call.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Manisha.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.